Do you ever wonder why other people's man defense seems to be better than yours, or why your zone defenses don't work as good as they should? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to fix that, plus some other secret tips that will instantly improve your defense in college football 26. The first thing we're going to start with is shading defense. Now, first, let's talk about shading defense out of zone. So something that gives a lot of people a problem in this game are flat routes or drag routes and just quick routes over the middle or underneath. Now, if I run this standard cover 3 right here, what you'll see is I could throw this drag, I could get up the field and get easy yards. Here, I'll switch to a cover 2 defense, for example, and do the same thing. You could see easy underneath and we're running upfield. I could also throw this flat route to my running back and usually pick up some pretty easy yards too. That's about 5 or 6. And these type of routes over and over will just pick up 5, 6, 7 easy yards, and it makes it hard for you to get stops. So the first way I love to shade defense is by using a zone like a cover 3 or a cover 4. You can also do this out of a cover 2 as well, but I think it's a little more risky with a cover 2. I'd rather do this with cover 3 and cover 4. But basically what you want to do is press the Y or triangle button and then down on the right stick to shade underneath. This right here will take away most of those quick underneath routes like flats, drags, that just get easy yards over and over. So now watch what happens if I try to throw this drag. I can see that the defense is there to limit it to about 2 yards. Here I'm going to try to throw to this flat route, and you see once again they are all over it. Shading down out of cover 3s and cover 4s is a really great tactic, and if you combine this with a good user over the middle like this, you can really shut down all of these underneath routes that people love to throw. Now, the next type of shade I want to talk about, we will do this out of a cover 2 man. Now, first, we're going to make sure that everybody is pressing by pressing Y or triangle and then down on the left stick. And then we're going to shade underneath once again, which is Y or triangle down on the right stick. Now, let me be very clear. You do not want to do this in man defense if you're running like a cover 1 or a cover 0 blitz, because you could very easily get beat over the top for touchdowns. We can do this out of 2-man under, however, because we have 2 deep safeties that can help from getting beat deep. But by pressing and shading underneath, our man coverage will play a lot more aggressive, and I'm not going to say that people will never get open. Sometimes people get off the press really good and get some open yards, but this is going to make it a lot harder, and it gives you a little more time for your pass rush to potentially get home. Now, we're going to user this guy that's on the running back. If the running back goes out, well, that's our responsibility. We have to run out there, but look how tight the coverage is. Now, if you do want to be a little riskier, you can just leave the running back all alone. He might go out, but you just might want to be usering over the middle just in case somebody does come free. But that's just the risk you've got to be willing to take. But a lot of times, especially if you're mixing up defenses and blitzing occasionally, people will block their running back, in which case that's when I like to really pull this method out, is when I think they're going to be blocking their running back, because if anything were to come over the middle clean, I could be here. But you could see most of these routes are completely smothered by the defense. Hey, if you're getting value out of the video, why don't you go ahead, subscribe, turn the bell icon on. That way you stay up to date with all of the best college football 26 tips all year long. It really does help support the channel a ton, and you can always unsub at any time if you get tired of the videos. Number 2, zone drops. Now right here, I'm going to show you a concept that a lot of people like to do. We've all been there where they hit you with a corner out on the sideline, you're in zone defense, and the corner just gets wide open for a massive gain. Now you're looking at your cover 3, you're seeing this curl flat here, and visually it looks like this is supposed to drop further back to stop that, but really this is going to drop to about 10 yards max, and then it has to rally down to the flat. So you might say, okay, well, let's try a cover 2 then, because this cloud flat will drift further back, and then if not, this safety should hopefully get over there to stop it. But then you see that you get hit with the same thing. It might take a little bit longer to develop, but it gets wide open. So let's talk about how zone drops can help with stuff like this. At the play call screen, we are going to click the right analog stick in to bring up our coaching adjustments, and then what we want to do is go down to our zone drops. Now, if we're trying to stop something like a deep corner route or a deep crossing route to the sideline with a cover 3, we're going to adjust our curl flats. If we're trying to do it out of a cover 2, we would adjust our regular flats. So let's look at a cover 3. We could take these curl flats and we can drop them back to about 25 yards. Then we'll call our cover 3 sky defense. Now you'll immediately notice if you look at the play art, look how those purple zones are way further back now. That is visually showing us that they're going to be dropping a lot further back to the sideline. Now this is going to give up the underneath stuff, but we'll talk about how to stop that in the next tip. But if they're trying to just forcefully throw these deep corner routes or deep crossing routes, you could see that the defender is now there to make a play on the ball. Really quickly, I want to let you know that I do offer a membership where I post all of my ebooks and my highest level offensive and defensive tips to help you dominate in college football 26. We've got hundreds of members who said that they are winning more games by being signed up, and you can try it out for a week for free So you can see what it's about at no cost to you. Link is in the pinned comment below. Now, if we want to stop it out of a cover 2, we would put our regular flats on 25. And then we call the Tampa 2 coverage. And you can see on the play art, look how far back those cloud flats are dropping now. And what you're going to notice now is that cornerback is going to be back there. To make a play, we can click on and try to even go for an interception. But as I just stated, if you go with this type of a method, well, the underneath is going to be wide open for huge gains. So we need to talk about that in the next tip. Tip number 3, coverage enhancements. So for our first coverage enhancement, I'm going to show you how to stop the flat and the deep sideline together. So we're going to go back to our coaching adjustments. We're going to have our zone drop flats on 25, and then we can put our curl flats on either 0 or 5. You can kind of just play around with this, whatever you like best. And then once again, we are going to call that Tampa 2 defense. Now, what we can do here is we know that we have the deep sideline taken away by those blue flats. But if we put an adjustment, for example, this outside linebacker here in this yellow zone, we can put him into one of those purple curl flats by pressing A or X, depending on your system. And then you look at the chart on the bottom left, we could see curl flat is right on the left stick. Now, what this does is because we've set the zone drops separately for these two zones, this light blue in the Tampa 2 is going to drift back to stop things like a deep corner or a deep crosser on that sideline, and then this curl flat is going to play about right here to stop the flat area. And then in a situation like this, you want to be usering over the middle because that's going to be your responsibility. If something comes over the middle, you want to take that away. But for now, I'm just going to put them on the D line so I can show you how this works. So we're going to run the same concept here, and we already know that the corner route's taken care of, but now if we try to throw this hard flat here, look, he is all over that and he actually loses yards. Now, to take the coverage enhancement a step further, you could literally do this to both sides of the field by taking the two outside yellow zones and putting them both in curl flats. Now, this does leave you a little bit more vulnerable over the middle, which means you're going to have to do a much better job as your user. So if you're a good user defender, you can get away with this. Typically, you really only need to do this on the side of the field where they're trying to flood the zones. But against certain types of formations, this can be useful to take away both flats and both sidelines on both sides of the field, and then you just stay over the middle. A lot of people struggle with this coverage. Now, another coverage enhancement that we can do with Tampa 2 is going to be something that can prevent the deep middle from being torn up by certain types of route combinations. So for this, we're going to want to make sure that our zone drops are on default. We're just going to play a standard Tampa 2. Now, this mid-read zone is actually pretty good in Tampa 2, so I like to not user him too much. If I'm running standard Tampa 2, I'll user one of these other yellow hook zones because the mid-read usually does a good job at getting back, but it can also kind of bite down on stuff and get aggressive, which can be good. The one thing that this will struggle against is sometimes these types of spread verticals looks. What happens is this slot route will get behind it for a one-play touchdown. Now, 8 or 9 times out of 10, you can just run the Tampa 2 with this mid-read and it's going to serve its purpose. But if you notice that someone is running those spread verticals concepts and trying to beat you deep, a way that you can enhance Tampa 2 is taking this mid-read, pressing A or X depending on your system, and then going up on the left stick for a middle third. This is going to ensure that he drops back. You're not going to have him baiting over the middle as much, but if you're a good user, you can take that yourself over the middle. But you also do want to make sure that you back him up just a little bit to make sure that he's going to get the depth that's necessary. Now, what happens is if they try to beat you over that deep middle with a route like this now, well, you'll see that he is there to make a play on the ball. Number 4, stopping RPOs. Now, RPOs can be a pain to stop because you have flat routes and you have bubble screens that a lot of times the defense just does not defend properly, and you have the run mixed in on top of that. So a lot of times what happens is you can throw these quick passes and get easy yards to the outside. And a lot of times people just get confused as to how to stop this because these literally can just eat defenses up all game long. The first thing you have to do is pull up your coaching adjustments by pressing the right stick in, and we've talked about this in other videos, but these key options right here are important. You always want your option read key on conservative, your option pitch key on aggressive, your RPO read and pass keys both to conservative. Now, these just help with a number of different things, but these two RPO ones right here are going to help with stopping those quick passes. But the other thing we need to make sure that we are doing is we need to make sure that there is a hard flat on the side where they would want to throw the bubble or the flat, which is going to be the side with the most receivers because you need blockers. So for example, in a cover 3, we could simply shade down, which goes back to our first tip, Y or triangle down on the right stick. I like to shade down most of the time out of this anyway because people like to throw those short routes. However, when you're dealing with RPOs, it's important to know that if this guy right here in this hard flat is lined up directly over this slot, he could get blocked sometimes. So a lot of times you want to maybe slide him in just a little bit and kind of split the difference between the receiving options. So right here, he's in the middle of the tight end and the slot. And now if we try to throw this, you could see he is going to be all over it. So if we're dealing with RPO cheesers, we want to do that. And then of course, we want to make sure that we are watching the inside ourselves to help shoot gaps to limit the run. Now here's another RPO with a bubble screen. Now it doesn't matter the type of coverage you're in. Right here we're in a cover 2. Yes, we could shade down, but what happens is this outside guy being in a hard flat isn't going to help us as much because he could easily get blocked. So what you need to make sure is you have some type of guy in the slot that's in the hard flat. So right here, because we don't want to shade down in a cover 2, we will manually put him into that hard flat. And again, we want to make sure that he's kind of in the middle of the receiving option. So right here, we can see the 2 receiving options are going to be the slot. And then there's another guy that's kind of in the slot as well because he's split out a little bit more. So we want him about right there. And that should put him in spot to just jump it just like this. And then this is what can happen a lot of times. You're going the other way, which is super beneficial because now you just scored points. So if you're worried about any of these RPO bubble screens or flats, you just have to make sure you have a hard flat that's in the middle of the receiving options, and he should do a good job at defending it. And that brings us to number 5, and that's using cover 4 defense as a great all-around to stop the pass and the run. So whether it's cover 4 quarters, cover 4 palms, those are matching coverages, which typically I don't call those, but for this setup, we're not going to be using the matching principles, so you could use that. Or you could use a play called cover 4 drop, which is a spot drop zone coverage. But for the purpose of this, it doesn't matter what variation of cover 4 you call, because the first thing we're going to do is we're kind of bringing everything together in this last tip. So the first thing we're going to do is shade down at all times with this Y or triangle and then down on the right stick. We're going to make sure our zone drops are set to default with this as well, because we're not trying to stop something specific. Now with this shaded down, that means the cover 4 quarters and cover 4 palms will not play match. They will just play regular zone coverage. But also with this shaded down, we're going to be helping to stop drags and flats. If we make sure that this defender is kind of lined up like this, we're going to be able to stop the RPO bubbles or the RPO flats. And then our safeties, I like to walk them down a little bit, but there is an adjustment we can make that'll have them automatically do this, which I'll show you in a second. But what I like about this is a great all-around coverage because we shouldn't get beat deep with 4 deep zones. We shouldn't get beat to quick flats. We can use her over the middle. But the great thing about cover 4 that a lot of people don't know is that these safeties here are in run fits, meaning if you watch them, I want you to watch how they stand flat-footed at the snap of the ball. They don't immediately drift back. Watch how they stand flat-footed and then they attack. That makes them very useful in the run. Notice here on the replay, at the snap of the ball, he's standing still and then he shoots down. But if I switch to a cover 2 defense, for example, I want you to notice at the snap of the ball, notice how the safeties start backpedaling. Here on the replay, look how they backpedal, and look how long it takes them before they actually come forward. And because of this, it's a lot harder to stop the run. So the great thing about the cover 4 is it's going to help us against the pass, but the safeties are going to read to see if it's a run or pass first, which means they are going to be very helpful in helping to shoot down and stop the run. So if you're playing a balanced player, this is a great coverage to be in, but let me show you how you can make this even better. If you pull up your coaching adjustments, there are new things called safety depth, width, and midpoint. So if you're playing someone that's balanced, you could put your safety depth on close. If you're playing someone that favors the run more, you could put them on tight. You could also put your safety width on pinch if you're playing a super heavy runner, but if not, I would just leave this on default. Now we're going to put this back to close. You could play around with this, but I want you to notice now how the safeties, look how close they line up. So that means we don't have to manually walk them down. All we do is shade our coverage. If we're worried about RPOs, maybe we slide this guy in. Now, if we're using a pinch look, they would be a little bit tighter in like this, which is why I say if they're more of a heavy runner, you might want to go with the pinch. If not, close is going to give you kind of a good middle ground for the pass and the run. And another good thing about the close alignment is because these guys are lined up a little tighter and a little closer to the line, they also do a good job at defending seam routes that people like to throw as well. So this overall coverage right here is just going to be great for limiting the pass and stopping the run. Now that you know about the best defensive tips, you're halfway there. Now you need to know what to do on offense so that you can score a lot of points, and you can check out that video right here on the screen.